You're listening to audio from the Decidedly podcast. For more information, find us on Instagram at Decidedly Podcast.
How long have you been in this office with the new studio?
3 months, 4
3
months, some
Okay.
in March, April, something like
So
that.
I just realized a new thing I like about this location.
Okay.
So I got here earlier. There's a pie store right next door.
It's a dangerous thing about this location.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I went in and so I bought like a pie to eat.
Like an
That was a personal, like a
it's a
personal
personal
pan
pie,
pizza.
yeah,
Like it
not
wasn't
not
like a whole big pie,
Okay.
but they had like little small ones that you
Yeah.
could just buy. I just ate the whole thing.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Have you? Okay, so I don't feel
Yeah,
so
they
bad.
make us, my team here kind of has made fun of me every time I've done that. One time I did it and I got a Coke at the same time, and apparently that was just over the top for them. They thought that was crazy.
Yeah. So I felt guilty a little bit, but then it didn't stop me from eating the entire pie.
Yeah, you and I think we have an indulgence problem when it comes
What do
to
you mean?
sweets.
Oh yeah, it happened to me last night. I was coming home from at a dinner. It was a nice steakhouse, and I'd already eaten, and I was just thirsty, so I stopped in a 7-Eleven and get a bottle of water. Did I get a bottle of water? No, I did not. Did I get a massive, giant, big gulp full of Slurpee?
Oh, nice.
I did.
Yeah.
I hadn't had a Slurpee since I was like a kid, and I was like,
Yeah, see, there's always a justification.
it just hit me.
You know what?
Yeah.
What helped me really recently? What I learned recently that I do that has helped me like kind of cut out things in my life that are difficult to cut out. I used to drink a lot of Coca-Colas. Remember?
Oh yeah. How could I forget?
Okay.
I remember one time at a hotel, you paid $9 for a 8-ounce.
Yeah, I was
bottle
fiending
of
for
Coke.
a Coke.
Yeah.
So what I realized that I do is I restrict one area and then allow another area to be completely unrestricted. For example, I don't really have an uncontrollable problem with sweets, but I would if I didn't have any restrictions or I tried to have too many restrictions.
What are your restrictions that you put on yourself?
Well, I'll tell you what I do, but what I can't do is have no rules. Because then I would just
sure.
eat pie all the time. And if I try to say I'll never eat pie,
Not
I'll
pointing any
fail.
fingers, but yeah, I see
I
what
would
you- yeah.
fail at that.
Mhm.
So what I do is I say I can't bring it into the house.
Oh, okay.
And I can't bring it into the office unless I eat it.
A lot of Twinkie wrappers in the car, are
Yeah,
there?
no. Well, there are less because I do that.
Yeah.
So there's no rules on how many. If I want to go to the pie shop right now and buy a pie and eat it, I can do that every single day. But I can't bring it home and say I'm going to have it for leftovers tomorrow.
Okay.
So if somebody brings food to our office, it's only allowed to be there for that day. So we can eat it.
Okay.
But if they bring
here at the office, if they bring donuts, they have to be thrown out the end of the day.
yes,
Is that what
we're not leaving those for tomorrow.
got it?
And
okay.
I'm not going to take them home.
Okay.
Because
that's a good
then
rule.
now that's violating my home rule. So I have total freedom to go to get a pie every single day of the week and do that if I want. But I don't because
Right. You're making it hard on yourself.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
because I have these other restrictions. And when I allow those to impact me, I'm less likely to
I've
wanna
heard some
do it.
people say they can eat it, but they can eat it standing up. They have to.
Yeah,
they
you
get
just
a
have to
bowl of
do
ice cream. They
something.
have to eat it standing
Yeah,
up.
you
or
have
they-
to do something.
Or they can't eat it while they're watching TV.
Yeah.
Or
I think
not
it's-
out of the carton.
So you say I'm putting this restriction on it, but then I'm allowing myself within the confines of that restriction to completely go crazy. So I'm not saying only one pie a week. No, it would be better to say you can have as many pies as you want on Sundays. You can have 8 pies. But then I can be crazy if I want to.
Is the system working for you?
It's great. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I mean, look at me.
Well, that's why I asked.
What do you think?
I'm just like
I'm doing all right.
off the rails.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of
yeah. Good luck tying that to Father Stephen. Yeah.
Speaking of indulgences, that's
good. There you go.
Our guest today, Father Stephen Gadberry, is a Catholic priest. Before that, he spent time in the Air Force. He was an American Ninja Warrior, ran the Leadville 100, which, if you don't do good with inferences, is a 100-mile foot race. So,
that's why they call it.
Yeah, that's why they call it the 100. It's also in Leadville, which is why they call it Leadville 100.
Coincidence.
So Father Gadberry came on and we talked a lot about religion, faith. We talked about making better decisions. We had some funny stories, some sad stories, some happy stories, and a lot of wisdom. So stick around. I think you're going to learn a lot. My name's Sanger Smith. I'm with my dad, Sean Smith, and this is Decidedly. Growing up in Arkansas as a lifelong Catholic, were you bullied and tormented and abused? Or was it relatively normal?
It wasn't too bad. I grew up in a small town, and so even though there were differences in like different denominations, we all knew each other, so everyone was pretty well respectful.
I don't think that's unique to Catholics. I mean, you were bullied, abused, and tormented. You were Catholic. You were in Arkansas.
I grew up as a evangelical Christian, and I converted to the Catholic faith last year. And so I am always interested what the experience is like growing up for different people. You know, it blows my mind that there's people who grow up in New Jersey where being Catholic is like the default. And here it's the opposite. A lot of families, unless they're Hispanic, don't know a Catholic. For my wife's family, they were like, so y'all are like Mormon or what? And I was like, no, it's very different.
Yeah, I had really good friends, and growing up in a small farm, I mean, there were a few different, like the major ones were the Catholic Church, the Methodist, the Presbyterian, and one of the Baptist churches. There were a bunch of smaller ones around, but kind of like from the beginning of the town, like those were the four kind of cornerstone churches, and so they were kind of respected, across the board, each one.
Well, you've done an interesting job of blending sort of combat boots to the priesthood. I mean, you've had a journey of taking you through the military. You've done the Leadville 100. You've been on American Ninja Warrior. You've had a background that is not used. It's not the normal path that people take to the priesthood. What do you think was that triggering point that led you in the direction that you're in now?
And, I don't think there was ever really a change. Like looking back on my life, there was always this element of just, I love working. I love helping other people. I love just grinding my way through life. And so there's that similarity through all these. And so I'd say there wasn't so much like a changing point, but rather development throughout the years. I was just talking with some friends the other day on this and just how like grit is really a word that kind of summarizes who I am. And I learned this on the farm growing up, hard work. And then that was kind of refined in the military and then directed through seminary. And so, but this element of grit kind of tying everything together, there's just something in my heart. I'm a typical guy. I love an adventure. I love a challenge, and the Lord never fails in giving me those opportunities to chase those things.
Yeah, a lot of our early lives really dictate how we go through and end up making decisions in the future, and how we form our personal lenses that inform how we make those decisions. You had a real tragedy early on in life, and I know that impacted how you see the world and how you've made decisions. Do you mind kind of going through that?
Yeah. When I was 8, I was in a vehicle accident with my father and 2 sisters. My dad, he was 32 at the time. Him and my older sister, who was 11, they both died in a car wreck. I was 8. My little sister was 3. We both survived. And that affects, that affects an 8-year-old kid, especially being there, and then not just being there, but like living through it, surviving it. And then not just that, but the fallout afterwards of just growing up in that household. Mom never remarried. She gave her life all to us. And so from a very early age, that definitely affected how I was raised and how I lived. And I have a wonderful mom, wonderful grandparents. They're both deceased now, and they just taught me how to work hard and how to persevere, and also how to be generous. Just this radical, like faithful loyalty to the family. And so from an early age, just did everything I could to help with the family. And yeah, it's kind of that it happened early on. But yeah, that was the tragic part, that dying and death hit me pretty early on. And then yeah.
How do you think that impacted you? I mean, clearly it did. How would it not? But in what way do you think it did?
Yeah, well, it's, there's good and bad. We're broken people, but the Lord is always redeeming and saving us. And so, like, through all this, there's been like some really cool things and some really bad things that have happened. I started doing counseling back in January, and it's been almost a daily thing, and it's been phenomenal. And for like, it's over these last 6 months, I've really unpacked a bunch of stuff, and I've never unpacked. I'm almost a 40-year-old man, and it's amazing how much we all have and carry that we're just kind of oblivious to, or it becomes our automatic response or automatic way of living. So unpacking this stuff to get to your question and answer that is like, how's it affected me? Well, in some ways, like it's taught me how to work hard, how to dig deep, how to really embrace suffering when it comes, knowing that it's going to pass. But it's given, I'd say, to use a word I just used was grit. It's given me like a radical grit and a radical perseverance and determination. It's also, so that's kind of a good thing. Another good thing of those situations of growing up in a tight situation, whether it be financially or having one parent or whatever it may be, is you learn to be pretty creative. You mentioned earlier all the different things I do. Like I'm just a curious guy. And growing up, part of that was a necessity. I had to figure out how to fix stuff, how to do stuff, how to survive. And Lord's really used that to give me just this crazy curiosity and energy. And I just love life. I love doing stuff, learning new things. So that's kind of the good stuff. The downfall of those is almost the reverse of the same coins is like this radical independence and perseverance makes it very hard for me to ask for help, makes it very hard for me to delegate. I have felt burdened in my life and I don't want to burden other people. So I won't ask for help. I won't delegate. This survival mindset of thinking like, well, there's no way out unless I work my way out it leads me to say yes to too many things, overcommit myself. And then also like another thing is like this fear of like getting close to people. Like, well, if I get close to them, maybe I'll lose them too. And so it can kind of like create a shell around me out of fear, like a wounded dog. So that's kind of some highs and lows that have come out of that.
That seems like a really normal response to a tragedy like that. I mean, people have that type of attachment wound from far less severe traumatic experiences. So I can imagine how that would be a struggle. How do you, I guess, allow God to work through you to help you avoid that?
Great question, man. Short answer is I don't know, and I'm still trying to figure it out. As I just mentioned, I only recently started counseling and stuff. I've been doing spiritual direction since I've been in seminary. So there's that,
Yeah.
there's a holy redeeming element to that, but we can't be separated from body and soul and spirit and mind and heart and skin and bones. Like it's a mixed bag and it's all in there. So, I mean, really getting understanding of like what's going on, being able to name those feelings and emotions and allow those emotions to come out and stuff. So it's an ongoing thing. You just got to be honest with yourself and with reality. It's only in God that we encounter, or it's only in reality that we encounter God, and that includes like even our own soul. Like if we have a traumatic experience, it would be dumb for me to walk around and say, "Oh, everything's hunky dory," when it's not. Which
Yeah.
is what I did for most of my life. Like, "Oh, it's okay. I'll figure it out. It's going to be okay." Like, yeah, it is going to be okay, and you will be okay. But you also have to address this gaping wound that you have in your soul. So it was just kind of living in a perpetual state of shock. So I didn't really answer your question other than I
No, you
continually
did
wrestle
in
with
a
it.
way.
Yeah, I continually
Yeah,
just
you did
wrestle
in a
with
way.
it.
Well, I think there's a lot of sort of being open to God's influence in how you're seeing things and making decisions. But I guess sometimes I worry that our own preferences might supplant that. And we're saying, well, this is God's divine will, but it's really just my own preferences sort of dressed
Oh,
up. How do you tell the difference when you're doing that?
that's another great question. Immediately, I go to just like the fruits of the spirit, and also what Ignatius of Loyola suggests for discernment of like peace and consolation. Because yes, you're very right. And even in my own life, there's some things that we've unpacked over the last few months in spiritual direction and this counseling I'm doing is that I've lived this way for so long, whether it be the way I relate to my mom or to people around me, or the way I work or ask for help or don't ask for help, has been like I've done it so long this particular way. But now, like with these outside observers, my spiritual director, by my mentor in counseling that I'm with, is like they're helping me to see this reality from a different angle and say, well, you don't have to live this way. And so then now it's a matter of living like a new way with a new way of thinking, kind of. I don't want to oversimplify it, but that's hard because I've got almost 40 years ingrained of me of doing it this other way. And it's like if you have, I don't know, let me think of something uncomfortable. I mean, you can have a rock in your shoe and it's going to be uncomfortable, but after a while, like you kind of get used to the discomfort and you forget about it until you
Yeah.
get rid of it and you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize I was in so much pain. Or you could think of another like physical thing, like maybe you always have a slight nagging headache or like brain fog or something. And then finally, like you go to the doctor and they're like, yeah, you're allergic to X, Y, or Z. Why don't you cut this out and for a week and see what happens? And then within a week, like you're like, oh, so this is what it feels like to not have a headache.
Yeah.
But it's awkward though. I mean, so what's it like? I mean, really rethinking and like, or like having a Christ redeems it. but there's still the process of having to learn to walk again.
The other night, my wife asked me to refill her water bottle. So I get up, I walk to the kitchen, I refill it. I come back, I walk to her side of the bed, and I nearly like fall flat on my face because all of the, silly decorative pillows that women love to have on the bed are all laid on her side of the bed, like right next to the bed where I'm trying, if she gets out in the middle of the night, like she's going to break an ankle. And I say, this is danger. What are you doing here? It's dark out. You got, 17 pillows laying around. And she goes, not trying to be funny at all. She goes, I know where my mess is. And it was the funniest. I'm dying laughing. Immediately, I'm like, that's so hilarious. And she goes, why are you laughing? And she was like, I mean it 100%. I know where my mess is. And I think that's like a little bit about what you're talking about is we kind of know where our pain is. We know where our mess is. My dirt and my filth, like I'm comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes cleanliness or healing is uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think also, I like that phrase.
I know where my mess is.
Yeah, that you were talking about, Stephen, you were talking about the counseling you started going through. Mm-hmm. And it might be that up until then, you didn't know where your mess was. And that this is helping you figure that out. Because I can't imagine at 8 going through something like that. And it seems like now, maybe it's just the times or where we are, but we would put a child in counseling right away in a situation like that.
Yeah, this was back in the mid 90s, and I went to it was like one thing with a therapist or one thing with a counselor or something. But I mean, like, I didn't mean anything. I didn't know what to. Okay, like, what are we doing?
Well, I find it interesting that you're very vulnerable with you're very open and vulnerable with what you're experiencing and what you're working on personally. Mm-hmm. In my experience, limited experience. Again, like I said, I'm a convert. The priests in my life they're like the complete opposite. I don't know anything about what's going on in their life. I don't know. And is that, I don't know, are you the outlier or is my experience the outlier in that?
I may be closer to the outlier side. It can be easy when you're a public person you're almost protecting yourself all the time. And I've done that and I still do that from time to time, but it's exhausting for me. Honesty and transparency and spontaneity is like very free. And so there's a number of priests that are kind of like this, but are like me and me like them. But we, I don't know, Christ was real. And so I just try to be real, following his example. And if that means that like maybe people see my broken side, then it doesn't make sense for me to portray myself as I have it all together, because I don't.
Yeah.
And I found firsthand, at least the way that the Lord's calling me to do ministry in my life is like, and for his glory, is that is actually giving people more freedom, because they see the priest, they see the pastor, they see the minister, they see the deacon, whoever, the elder, and people are just thinking, oh, they have their life together. And well, no, they don't. And because the people in the pews don't either. None of us do. We're broken. We're desiring salvation. We're striving for that and working it out with fear and trembling. And yeah, I don't know. Whenever you know that, like, the mess you're living in, you're a mess. But yeah, it's just bringing that to the light. It's freeing for people.
I think there's been a lot of silence in, I think sort of men's culture is, at least when I was growing up, you didn't talk about stuff like that. You just kind of bottle it down, stuff it down.
What was the advice he would give me, by the way?
It is. It was the advice I got. So
he said, no, son, stuff it down.
Stuff it down.
Yeah.
Suck it up, man. Yeah.
I grew up in a German Catholic farming family in rural Arkansas. And it's like, talk about emotions. Like, you were a cardboard box or a statue. Like, you didn't show anything. And so we would repress this stuff, push it down, ignore it until somebody exploded. And whenever one person's head went off, everybody blew their top. And then we have this big family fight, and then it goes back to packing it into the box like a jack in a box, and that's exhausting, man. So you're exactly right. There's a cultural thing about that.
Well, I think, and this is not a knock on the Catholic Church at all.
But better not be.
This is two against one. But I think there's been a silence from a lot of the religious sectors around some of the cultural things that are happening in the United States. And I think the danger of that is not only not setting the ship right, but it leaves the room for those people who are willing to say things. And it leaves rooms for people like Andrew Tate, who can come in and speak to men who are desperately seeking guidance. And that may not be the right guidance that they're getting.
Right. And I think, yeah, a lot of leaders, church leaders across the board, from all denominations, not just that, but also even like government and civil leaders too, like regardless of the message that Andrew Tate is giving, look at his following. Like something about that is resonating in the masculine heart. And I'm not saying it's correct, but there's something resonating there that can be redeemed by Christ and that wants to be redeemed by Christ and that Christ wants to help us express. And so I think addressing this stuff is like essential for the salvation of our men, and vicariously through that, the families. We have to be another Christ in our households for our wives, our kids. And yeah, the cry of the heart. I'm thinking right now of John Eldridge, his book, I think Wild at Heart or something like that, I think is what it's called. Great book, but it addresses a lot of those stuff. Fight for a lover, and go on an adventure and do work essentially.
So how do we discern when we're looking at crossroads and decisions we've had to make, and you've made a lot of important ones in your life? How do we discern from those different voices, internal and external, the ones that are going to help impact that decision?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Again, the fruits of the spirit, the presence of God's hand, is the action or the decision that you're going to do. Is it going to help you to sin less and help the other people that it impacts, help them to sin less? Will it lead to more unity and more peace? For the people that decision affects, will it lead them to be more generous and more other serving? Or is it going to create divisions, resentment, self-serving attitudes, anxiousness? So that's kind of my default. And then also a lot of things like, I mean, where the spirit is like, if the spirit's blessing is on something, like you see it, like it begins unfolding. It can be slow momentum at first, but you follow those waves, you follow that momentum, and it just snowballs quickly. Because there's other things that it is something that I struggle with in such a large church. I've got almost 11,000 people here, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. I want to keep everything alive, but there's some groups that I'm just putting so much energy into it, and I'm fanning the flame, but it's just kind of sputtering a little bit. And there has to be a moment when you kind of let some fires burn out and others will take off, like the ones that I'm not even trying to keep burning or just exploding. So how do I discern those things? Is I just kind of look at those fruits. What's the vitality of it? What does it do for the people affected to it? Would be kind of the longish, rambly answer that I'd give.
Yeah. I've seen two priests in my limited Catholic experience really do an amazing job at much smaller parishes, but an amazing job of growing the community, and not only in numbers, but growing it in unity, making a real community, and not just getting more people to show up for Sunday obligation or whatever. And the way that they did it seems like it wouldn't work. So the way that they did it, in my experience, was they picked, kind of like what you're saying, very, very, very specific subgroups to focus on. At our parish in Fort Worth, the priest recently got shipped off to Illinois, but he seemingly didn't care about anybody other than single men. And it was like, when I got married, it was like he almost stopped texting me. Now, he never said, I only care about single men, but it was just obvious in what he was putting on. So he would schedule like, hey, after Saturday morning mass, we're going to go lift weights and eat burgers or whatever. There were all these like single men activities. And sometimes guys would bring their girlfriends. He'd be like, no, this is just men. And you would think, okay, well, if you're creating these community events and you're making it so micro, it's almost exclusionary, that the broader community it's going to be dominated by people in this little micro group. And it wasn't. It was amazing. It was like more single men started coming to church, and then more young families, and then now older people see that and they like it, so they actually want to come.
Yeah.
So it was like everybody started coming, and everybody was all part of the community, but he only put his attention on certain groups.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's a great example. And the fire, like when people come close to Christ, you can't help, like it flows out of them. So if these guys are all like growing closer to the Lord, that's the whole example that I was just trying to give of like, okay, now they're becoming more generous, they're more involved, they're more out serving or outgoing instead of ingoing. And then it trickles out to these other groups. I think, I didn't mention this earlier, probably should have. A very important thing, at least in my discernment, is identity and mission. very often we put so much emphasis on the mission, which is good, but we do it sometimes at the cost of understanding who we are. And if you don't know who you are, and you try to choose your mission or force a mission that you're going on, and it's not from the proper identity, it'll burn out, or you'll just wear yourself out trying to make it happen. Whereas if you focus on who you are and who God has made you to be, what your gifts and your talents and your weaknesses and your struggles, who are you? What is the skill set that the Lord has given you? And what's the call he's putting on your heart to carry out? But you can't do something before you know who you are. Every encounter that the Lord had in the Bible,
Yeah.
Bishop Barron talks about this a lot, is like, you cannot encounter the Lord without receiving a subsequent mission. But before they receive the mission, before God sends all these people out, he meets them and they know who they are, and like he clarifies their identity. And then from there, through this interaction with God, with the divine, they more perfectly know who they are. And then from there, he sends them out on mission. So no encounter without a mission, but the encounter
Yeah.
clarifies who you are.
Yeah, I agree with that
I
100%.
I had that experience. This was just recently. I had to kind of put some distance between myself and some people I had been doing business with, and it was all around this personal mission that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Exactly that same thing, and that I finally figured out there were 5 ways that people could interact with my personal mission or interact with your personal mission, and that was to one to be to facilitate it,
Mhm.
help me do it. The other would be just encourage it. The third would be just be neutral about it.
Mhm.
Fourth would be discourage it, or the fifth would be prevent it. They saw it
Mhm.
happening, they would go in and actively stop it. And so when I got to that realization, I said, these people are actually stopping the mission from happening. And it was a difficult decision to do because I'd been working with these people for a long time.
Mhm.
But it wasn't difficult in the sense that once I figured out that framework, I said, oh, I have to distance myself. Have you found that you've had to do that sometimes?
Yeah, and it's tough, but the clarity there, when you get to the point and you have the clarity to make those decisions for the sake of the mission, like either a change in your life or removing an obstacle from that thing, if it's properly discerned, it's discerned out of who you are, who God has made you to be, and then you more clearly understand what He's calling you to do. So at that point, when those people, like, it can make some fallout, and it's tough, but in those moments, because the decision came through good discernment with you knowing who you are, you don't require as much external validation from them. It'll hurt. Like, yeah, you're like, man, I've been with you for a long time. This is a bummer. But you're like, all right, this is what the Lord's called me to do. So it's the whole being rooted in the identity of as a beloved son of God. And I experienced that. And it's been really interesting just to see how it's affected relationships. But then the freedom is really cool. The freedom that I have, but also the freedom that other people have through that. Sometimes they don't realize that putting these barriers up or separations or distances or boundaries, whatever it may be, it's initially hard for everyone because you're learning a new way to live. But then in the long run, everyone ends up being better if it's well discerned. But yeah, it's happened to me, and it still is.
Several years ago, I was thinking of like, why do we do the work that we do as financial planners? And it hit me, like this phrase hit me and stood out in my head: transform wealth to significance. I was like, that's what we do. That's the best version of what we do. We don't help people make more money. We don't help them meet their goals, whatever that means. We transform wealth to significance. And like, as soon as I said it, I knew what I meant by that was to serve God. That's the most significant thing I could possibly do with my life and my money. And even if someone wouldn't say that's what they're doing with their life, if I can move them closer to significance, then I'm moving them closer to God. And so then it got really exciting for me. I was like, oh man, that's finally, I understand what I'm doing. And so then I started thinking, well, with my dad, we're thinking like, how do you do that? What do you have to decide in order to be able to transform wealth to significance? And the very first decision is decide who you are. So exactly like you were saying, if you don't know who you are, then all the other stuff doesn't matter. And what I found is that most people have not done this work when it comes to their money, at least on their own before they work with us, which is why we have a job, I guess. But a lot of people, they're either like really open to it. As soon as I say, hey, I tell them what I told you, they're like, oh yeah, get it. that's great. I want to do that. And then other people are like, yeah, so how about you just tell me how to make more money? They have a seemingly a resistance to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've come to learn that I can't help those people unless they change their mindset. And I might not be the best person to change their mindset, but it's sometimes very disappointing to see and like deflating.
Yeah. If there's no significance, then there's really no meaning in what they're doing. And ultimately that's the why. What is your why? We can do a lot of what and the hows, and we can figure all this stuff out and do stuff, but why? And like
Yeah.
ultimately it's like you just mentioned, it's God, and that's what our heart ultimately longs for. But yeah, we gotta have that significance. That's a good point.
Do you get a version of that in your world? People who come, maybe they're in the faith, maybe they're outside of the faith, and they're almost looking for like a manual, a life manual.
Yeah.
Okay, Father,
Like a Bible?
what do I do?
Yeah, that happens all the time. And that's a tough thing. Like Sean was pointing out a second ago, is like sometimes in this, when you're on a mission, like you recognize, well, sometimes you got to let some people go or make some hard decisions. Of course, I want to help everyone whenever they come. I want to bring them to Christ. But there are people that come and they just want the easy answer. And
Yeah.
I can't give them answers, but like I can give them some very concrete things to do, following scripture and and the word of the Lord, and put them in the right direction, and basically give them a spiritual prescription. You could say like, okay, let's try XYZ 3 times a week. And then like, let's meet in a month. And they come back a month later. I'm like, well, hey, how's it going? They're like, oh, it's still terrible. My life's falling apart. And I say, well, did you try XYZ? And they said, no, I didn't do that. I said, well, I mean, we're done here. I'm not going to keep spinning wheels, and you're not going to get anywhere either. So it's just going to lead you to despair. It's going to burn me out. So like, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, people come all the time and want those answers. The thing is, I'm sure y'all experience this through what y'all do, but coming from the fitness world, the best athletes are the most coachable athletes. The
Yeah.
worst ones to have are the ones who won't listen to the coach and think they know more. Now, that doesn't mean that the coach is better and knows necessarily more, but the coach can see things, give suggestions, and the athlete will listen and adapt. And it's all about this openness and vulnerability and willingness to be coachable.
And the most difficult ones, I would imagine, for coaches are the talented athletes who are not coachable. Because it's just got to be
That's got to be so frustrating. You have so much potential.
I've been on teams with guys like that.
Yeah. I have a cousin or uncle of my wife is an NBA coach. And when I first met him when we were dating, I was fascinated by how the heck do you get people to listen to you?
Mhm.
Because he didn't play in the NBA. He didn't even play in college. And if he did, it was like a D3, it was, so the guy himself doesn't have the credibility of saying, hey, I used to be really good at hitting this shot. When I was your age, I could
Here's
hit
how
this
I
shot.
did it. Yeah.
He couldn't say that. He was just really good at coaching, which made his success as a coach so much more impressive to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you get these? I mean, this is the NBA. It's as good as it gets. These guys are, some of the guys are just, they're the best, that they're better than even the guys in the past. 30 years ago, if you were a really good player, like the guys today could smoke you. So these are the best of the best to have ever played this sport, and they're listening to you. And he was like, his answer was so real, but very disappointing to me, because he was like, yeah, man, that's just my job. And he didn't have any trick. And it was kind of like, the way I interpreted his answer was like, man, if these guys want to get good, they're going to listen to me. Like, I don't have to have some special...
He was saying, my job is to figure out what they need to do.
And that's my job. So duh. Like, why would they not listen to me unless they're just a complete idiot and don't want to get better?
They want to win. That's a big thing for me in ministry. And I think really all leaders, not just religious leaders, but all leaders, is like a good leader is good at ordering charisms, or good at ordering gifts, or good at putting people in place to do what they do well, and moving people from places when they're not doing something well, or helping them to get better in it. But ordering of charisms, if we like when keep it like in religious terms, is really like something that I try to do. Identify, they have to be coachable, but also part of my job is to put people on the court at the place where they can best play. And when you do that, then the whole team thrives.
So speaking of athletics, we have a friend who's doing the Leadville 100 in 2 weeks. Is that when it is?
Well, I know who I'm thinking about. Who are you thinking about?
Cole.
Oh yeah, okay. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Colton and Mark. So I
Oh,
got
you
two
know
guys
Mark.
doing it.
Okay. Now
got
you
two guys doing
did
it.
Leadville 100 how long ago?
I did it last year. I was supposed to do the stage race last week, this year. Yeah, it was last weekend. But we had a bunch of pastoral changes, like new associate pastors moving in and a summer intern. And so it was just,
Yeah.
I just didn't happen.
I would think you'd have a lot of time to train because, I mean, don't you just work 1 hour on Sundays?
Yeah. That's a joke with my buddies.
Sorry.
Yeah.
How do you go about laying out a training plan for a race that is that different from what you would do normally?
Yeah.
Because that's a pretty big event.
Yeah. I mean, a year ago, I started training in February or so for it. And I racked up, hit almost 5,000 miles of total training leading up to the race. It was a lot of volume. But how did I do that? It was just, consistency. 1 and 2 hours add up.
Well, I mean, did you hire a coach? Did you have a checklist of miles, workouts per day, 2 a day? How did you walk me through it?
Just kind of like little self programming. I've got a history and training and fitness and coaching and stuff, and so I kind of worked on my own plan. Also I have a couple of friends that are professional athletes and that were doing the ride as well, and so we were just always going back and forth with different things we were doing, and just kind of I just know my body well, and I know like whenever I have something I'm training for, like I kind of know what I need to do to get to the point that my body is capable of for whatever the event is. So just kind of on my own stuff. And
I had somebody telling me about the Leadville 100 the other day, and they said, yeah, you start in Death Valley and you go all the way up to the top of Denali. I said, I don't think that's true.
No,
I don't think that's
can't be right.
That doesn't sound right at all.
It'd be like
Yeah.
total elevation change over
Yeah,
100.
over 100 miles
mean-
is 12,500 feet of total elevation gain.
Okay, that's still nowhere close to what that would be. That'd be like
Yeah.
25,000 feet.
What's the temperature like?
When we started, it was almost freezing, and then by the midday, it was 80s. So
You start at night?
Start right at sunrise.
Right, sunrise. Okay.
It was fun race.
My friends are trying to convince me to do it.
You should.
I don't want to, man. So my version of that was I did 2 Ironman triathlons in a 3-week period. And I did it. And then now I'm done. I thought at that time, I was like, I'm going to always do some cool thing like this every year. I'm going to go crazy and I'm going to do Leadville. And now that I did it, I'm like, I think I'm good. I would have to have such a compelling reason because not judging anybody that like loves this stuff and does it all the time. For me, I feel like I got what I needed out of that
One
experience.
and done or two and done.
Yeah, it was a transformative year in my life that taught me a lot of things, and I knew I needed it, and I did it, and it was great. And I am not at the point where I need to do that anymore.
What did
I can relate.
Are you going to do Leadville every August?
I was going to do it again this year, but it just didn't happen. So I booted or deferred the ticket, my entrance to next year. So I'll do it because I'm out that money. So I don't want to waste the money. But
Do you have to qualify for that, or is it just anybody can sign up?
pretty much anyone can sign up. I mean,
I thought
if
for
you get a
your
spot.
first one you had to qualify.
Yeah, so for your first one you do. So yeah, you are right on that. I forgot about that. I had a charity entry, so I didn't have to qualify.
Got it.
So for that
Is
first one.
is it time based on a marathon? Because there's not a whole lot
No.
of 100-mile races.
No,
they
there's
compare to.
specific qualifying races.
Yeah.
If
specific
you
ones.
if you don't get the lottery ticket, basically, there's one in Austin over the summer. It's like a 50 miler.
Mhm.
There's like those type of ultra.
So they're not even doing qualifying
No,
on marathon.
a marathon is not even.
They're doing ultras.
Nope. You have to qualify based on an ultra.
Jeez, I did an ultra one time, and I swore as I was doing it, I was never going to do it again. I said it like mile 30. I'm like, I don't care what happens, I'm never doing this again.
My friend Ben used to do ultras with zero training. He would make a point to not train. Like the
How did he not
event
get
for
injuries?
he did. The event, of course he did.
Of course he got
Everything that you're hearing, everything that you're thinking right now of like, well, how
he
did that,
blew out his ankle? Yes,
all
he
of
did.
that is true. Yes, it was bad. It wasn't smart. I don't know why he did it. But it was like it's like the Jackass films. You're like, I don't know that I'm impressed, but
You're just crazy.
it is cool, I guess. That's how I felt about him. I was like, that's kind of
How do you train for something like American Ninja Warrior? Do they tell you like what crazy obstacles they're going to have, or like how do you prepare for them?
No. Yeah, you don't know what they're going to have until you're there on the set. You don't get test runs or anything. They give you a safety briefing, or like they walk you through it.
You
don't
don't? I thought you would get to kind of run the course and kind of see how it.
No, they walk you by
wow.
it as they're saying, okay, here you can't use your feet, here you can only use your hands, or here, whatever. I didn't train well for that. I just did regular CrossFit. I kept doing that, which it was in phenomenal shape for it, but I didn't do a lot of climbing because I didn't have access to that where I was at, climbing or the gymnastic stuff. And so I was just had to do what I could with what I had. That was a fun experience. I did that twice.
It looks fun. How do you get onto that? Do they come to Arkansas and say, hey, we're having tryouts? Or
it's kind of like online casting, or like you can submit an application to do that and then share your story. And for things like that, they want somebody that's like somewhat capable. So they don't want you to fall on a starting line. They want somebody that could at least kind of do it.
Make it halfway through at least or something.
Yeah, but they also want people with neat stories too, and people that can tell the story too. And so there's a lot of amazing people. Everyone out there has a great story. And then I have a unique one too, a farm boy, military veteran, now turned Catholic priest who continues to hunt and work out. And so it's just an interesting character for the show. And
you can do it again?
Nah, I'm washed up now.
Done.
Although I've been thinking about, because it's about, the whole point there was wanted to preach the gospel. And a friend on there, Sean Bryan, he's the papal ninja. He's the one that encouraged me to do it. And he's like, hey, you should do this. And I'm like, man, I'm not good at it. He said, well, it doesn't matter. Just get on and make a fool of yourself. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll do it. If a primetime television program is going to give you airspace to preach the gospel, why not do it? And so I did it. So to answer your question, am I going to do it again? No, I'm not. But it would be cool. There's another priest here who does a lot of climbing and stuff, and he's really good at this stuff. And we thought about putting together like a story of like me mentoring him, even like I wouldn't mentor him really, but it'd be like the elder and the little guy.
Oh, that'd be good.
It'd be kind of a fun storyline. So we may do that.
That's worth a shot.
Yeah, you definitely do that. So this came up the other day. Sanger and I were talking about this. So now that we've got you on the show, I'll ask you this question. So Sanger and I were having dinner. I don't know if you remember this. We were talking about trips. And I said, I want to do this trip where I go down to Peru or Costa Rica or whatever and go to one of those retreats where they give you ayahuasca or whatever. So you get to be the arbiter on this. I got a feeling where you're going to come down on this.
Yeah, where's the Catholic priest going to go on psychedelic drugs?
All right, so that's my question. I'm not looking for a blessing. I'm not, but on this, but where do you come down on that? Because I have heard people have good experiences on those types of things. They categorize it as one of the big life-changing moments and speak about it in nothing but positive terms. So it got my curiosity up, and I was like, oh, look into this.
I don't want to say I've studied a lot because I haven't done formal studies, but I've listened to a bunch of different people's takes on it. There are a lot of religious overtones. If you hear about, the way there's like a shaman that does this and leads you through this whole ritual, and it like gives a whole different experience. Ron White and Joe Rogan, they went on a long thing, and Ron White was explaining this, and it sounded like a religious service, like a church service, and even like life-changing, effects of it. So like a lot of people talk about that. Some of my spidey senses go up a little bit because it's like, well, let's see, there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. So if there is a life-changing thing that happens, like what is the force that makes that life-changing thing happen? If it's not explicitly Christ, then who or what is it? And that gives me some concern there so that's one thing that I just don't have an answer for, but it's a thing that comes to mind. Okay, if there's a definitive change in my life, what force or power or person or thing is causing this change? Is it just this biological substance that I'm eating, this ayahuasca, or is there some other spiritual element to it? That's one thing. Another thing concerns like the surrender of like your faculties. That can be a dangerous thing whenever you surrender your free will. Because in that moment, when you're under the influence of that, from what I understand, like you can't really control too much stuff. Like who is taking care of your soul in that moment? Yeah, and I guess it would be the leader, that shaman or whatever, but my shaman would be like a witch doctor, Anyhow, so I've got some concerns about it. That being said, it would be neat to see some studies done. I guess this is a long answer. For example, like psychedelics, because there's more stuff coming out on how that can affect PTSD and deep traumas. And it's sort of like when you like catch a cramp, it's almost like the cramp is so bad because the body tries to fight back and uncramp itself, which makes the cramp get even tighter. And so you have to break the circuit. Where am I going with all this? It's like, if there could be some measurable objective data and it be repeatable, I think there could be, then you can have more of the better moral understanding of it. I don't know. That's the answer for me trying to think it out because I'm still wrestling with it myself. It'd be cool to try, but I don't want to try it until I have like more answers.
I don't know how much you know about this, but the Vatican, like studying psilocybin a couple of years ago, I heard something about this. They like,
I don't know.
there was, I need to go read about this and we'll provide an update, but there was a study that got like a bunch of different religious leaders. I mean, there were Protestant pastors, Jewish rabbis, and there were Catholic priests that were like endorsed by the Vatican to go out there and, hey, you can take some psilocybin if you want. It's cool with us. And it was supposed to be kind of digging in a little bit more on what you're bringing up. Hey, we've heard a bunch of good things, but I don't know. Is it weird and spooky? Don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at that too. I'm really curious. I mean, the fact, so it's here, and that's the reality. It's here, and so we need to be ready to give a response. It's like Timothy talks about in the script. Timothy or Titus, but somewhere in the Bible talks about, Timothy, be ready to give a defense. And so this stuff's going on, so we need to be able to address it. We can bring Christ to it, and the light of Christ will discern it. Can discern it with that. But I don't know. I just have a lot of questions about it. But.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions about it as well. I read a book a while back called The Immortality Key that had done a lot of research on it, and that those types of experiences had been present in sort of ancient religions, and that there was this sort of door to the divine through those experiences, and that pretty much got shut off for years, and it's outlawed and shunned. As you said, it's still there, and so it was interesting to me to research it. So I appreciate hearing your take on it.
Wish I could give you a better answer. I want to know more myself.
Well, thanks for being here. I've learned a lot. I appreciate hearing your story. Final question for you. Mm-hmm. What is your top decision-making tip for business owners?
Wow. Okay. Silence. If it has to be like a single thing, it would be like spend time in silence. I mean, yeah, you can make decisions in chaos and under pressure, but for a big business tip, like it needs to be well discerned. And for that, you have to be able to spend time in silence thinking about it. And that would be, if it had to be one thing, it would be that. I guess a longer answer would be like spend time in silence and make a commitment and just decide and commit to it and do it. It's either going to take off or it's going to crash and burn. If it crashes and burns, then start over. And if it takes off, praise God. But don't be afraid of silence. Is probably the initial thing.
Where can people get in touch with the work you're doing?
Well, I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas, St. Teresa Catholic Church and school. We had an awesome school. So when the school's in session, they'll pretty much always find me there. Online, I guess the easiest thing is probably just my social media, like Instagram page. It's just Father Stephen J. Gadberry. There they can kind of follow up with me and message me through there or email me through the church website and everything. But yeah.
Thank you,
Father. Appreciate you being here.
Appreciate you guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My takeaway from our discussion, Father Stephen had a lot of great wisdom to share, but it was sort of a throwaway thing that you were talking about when you were walking up to the bed and the pillows were over there, and the statement was, "I know where my mess is." And that really resonated with me because sometimes we don't know where our mess is. Mm-hmm. And if we don't know where our mess is, we're going to stumble over it. If we do know where our mess is, then that puts the question on us, what are we going to do about it? Are you just going to move around it, ignore it? You going to clean it up? What are you going to do about that? So that it was kind of funny. It just kind of stuck with me. I know where my mess is. So maybe you should know where your mess is.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
I think my biggest takeaway is not something that we said explicitly, but something that Father Gadberry is doing, which is being vulnerable and being open and forthcoming about what you're working on. And I think you can do that in a way that does not diminish your credibility. Some people maybe do it too much, but you don't always have to fake like you have it together when you don't. And I think it's endearing when somebody who's in a role of spiritual leadership can do that honestly.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Decidedly podcast. To be notified when new episodes are released, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're there, drop us a 5-star review because it helps more people defeat bad decision-making right alongside you. For show notes, decision-making insights, more episodes, and links to resources mentioned in this episode, check us out at decidedlypodcast.com. If you'd like us to help you make a decision, leave us a message at decidedlypodcast.com/make-my-decision for a chance to have your question featured in an upcoming episode. For more decision-making content, check us out on Instagram or Facebook at Decidedly Podcast. As always, thanks for listening. This is Decidedly.